Great to have you with us. Joining us now, State Senator Jill Vogel, who did more in 3 days to help the beleaguered Whig Republican brand in Virginia than anybody else. Jill Vogel, thanks for being with us.
Good morning. It's great to be with you.
Okay, this is a real profile in courage, I believe. I'm with her on this. ERA floating around the General Assembly, big issue, Equal Rights Amendment. People polarized on both sides of it. Symbolic vote of Vogel in her committee. Elections and what is it? I always forget, Jill.
The Privileges and Elections Committee.
Privilege and Elections Committee. First day, General Assembly convenes. Day one, Vogel brings it up in her committee, gets it out of committee 8-6, and then within the first week of the General Assembly, gets it to the well, gets it to the floor, gets voted on. 7 Republicans vote in favor of it, gets out of the Senate. The ERA amendment passes in basically a 2-1 landslide, got 7 Republicans to vote for it. Now it's done. It's up to the House. Go from there. But what Jill Vogel did is she got rid of it. I mean, this is a symbolic vote. It just has no impact to me on anything. I mean, it's going to get litigated forever. And now we're on to important things like gaming, like taxes, like what they're there for. And I thought, Jill, you did more to enhance the fleeting Republicans' chances of maybe keeping the House and Senate than anybody in there. And I know you've been criticized for it. I thought it was a courageous thing to do, and I commend you for that leadership, Jill Vogel.
Well, I appreciate that, and I can't take the credit for how we manage that and how we docket our legislation. That's the process. But I will say that I was criticized for hearing the bill at all, and I would say it's actually a good procedure in the Senate of Virginia that we docket every bill and give every bill a fair hearing. And so if someone believes that it's not properly before us, it's their prerogative to merely vote against the bill. And that was the option that everybody had. And so I would just say that it's really important for us as conservatives, to the point you made earlier, to focus on the great story that we have to tell and the legislative agenda that we want conservatives to rally to support, not focusing on whipping up a bunch of hysteria over a resolution that has passed out of the Senate 6 times before with majority support and with Republican support, when it's a resolution that the deadline has passed 40 years ago on this. So this is just a vote about whether or not we support women and women's equality in concept. And frankly, why would you not vote for that and move on? And just move on. And so I regret that there was so much misinformation, and I think it was just really misguided for some of our conservatives to choose this as their core legislative agenda for an entire session, which is about things that really matter to conservatives, like the governor's gun control proposal and all the issues related to taxes and tax conformity, and the fact that there's all this money that could come back to Virginians if we do the right thing. So I just regret that somehow we maybe misfired on that when it was the right thing to do, just to report it out, move on.
Senator Vogel, look, those Republicans or conservatives, whatever you want to classify themselves, those that oppose to this, that pick this as the hill to die on, Victoria Cobb Family Foundation and others, like this is the hill to die on. It is a prescription for electoral calamity, right? You have very little chance. We lose credibility. Totally. And I don't think you're going to keep the U.S. Senate. I mean, you got an outside shot if you guys nominate somebody like Ramadan, perhaps, in Black's district. You got a remote shot. I give you maybe 20%. But the House, you have a better shot. But if they vote this down in the House or kill it in committee, you're going to lose the House. It's going to gin up more suburban women voting against Republicans because it's going to be using all the ads. And you got so many great things to talk about. Why would you go down this path? It makes no sense to me that Republicans would die on this hill, jeopardize the last legitimate shot at a majority they have, which is the House, because you're an underdog to keep the state Senate going forward. And you haven't won a statewide election. You've lost 15 straight. So it's crazy to me. It doesn't make any sense.
And I think again, it's about perspective. You have to consider that we have a 51-49 majority in the House, 21-19 in the Senate.
Right.
And again, as a messaging matter or as a fundamental, principle of what this legislative session is about, principally, it's not about this. This is, while of course it's important to talk about equality, and while we all believe in equality, the facts are the facts. The deadline to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment was first 1979 and then extended to 1982. And that fact has not changed. It is not a live amendment. It is not something that we in Virginia have the opportunity to ratify or to change in Congress. It's just that simple. So,
right.
Of course, last week in P&E and on the Senate floor, that was, in fact, a symbolic vote. And I'm proud to cast that symbolic vote. And we had another bill come up yesterday that was equally symbolic that came before our committee. And again, it was a whole lot of debate, and I think it just, unfortunately, distracts from some of these other very important issues. And again, not to undermine the importance of this issue, but I will say, to your point, it does hurt our credibility some when we go out there and educated people who understand charities law and constitutional law, appreciate that when someone says all churches are going to lose their tax-exempt status if we adopt this resolution on the Senate floor, well, that just isn't factual. That is just not true. Or that suddenly it's going to mean taxpayer-funded abortions. Well, the balance of the case law just does not support that. And, we've had the United States Supreme Court say gay marriage is legal. And many churches don't recognize gay marriage. They didn't lose their tax-exempt status. The free exercise clause protects churches. So for some of those arguments, again, to be made, it really, I think, undermines the credibility of educated people who understand about the law. And again, moreover, that what trumps all of that is the fact that this died 40 years ago. So for all those reasons, I regret that we had a lot of misinformation that was disseminated to get people very worked up over it, when it would be wonderful if they would come down to the General Assembly and help us on a bunch of these other issues where we really, really need to help. If you care about your Second Amendment rights, you better be showing up this year to look out for us and to try to help drive that debate in a direction that is different than where, the Democrats would have this end up. The same with the issues on taxes.
Jill, you mentioned that there was another symbolic vote in your committee yesterday. What was that?
Well, that was on the same issue. That was Senator Chase had introduced a resolution on equality for women, that restating, women's accomplishments, and that, we embrace equality for women. And that was an equally symbolic vote, and I cast that vote too. And of course I let that come before my committee, and there were people who said, this isn't properly before us. This is inconsistent with the, earlier resolution. And of course I'm going to let that resolution be heard. But again, we have a lot of other bills and resolutions that are before that same committee, the same resolutions that are dealing with the same kind of amendments, but on other subjects like redistricting reform or, the governor's term of office. I mean, we have so many other issues, again, that are substantive and important and actually do affect the law in Virginia.
Senator, I get that, but hey, just let me ask you something as an aside. What was the deal with Amanda Chase yesterday, Senator Chase from Chesterfield, going to the well with a sidearm with a gun there? Did she feel not safe, or what was that?
I don't know. I didn't have a chance to ask her about that, but I saw her when she was speaking. She had it on.
Okay, well.
But certainly there have been some incidences in the Senate recently, so I think she may have felt like that she was safer. She was,
Joe Morrissey, who's on at 10 a.m., came to the well one time with an AK-47, so you can thank Joe for that. He's on the John Fredericks Radio Network, 10 to noon, Tuesday to Friday. He'll be on today. Somebody can call him up and ask him, what do you think about Amanda Chase, who only went in there with a little handgun. He went in there with an AK-47. I want to get to a couple of these other issues. We've got about 6 minutes here, Senator, and I want to get one out of your district, but you're going to be faced with it. And that is the Pamunkey tribe trying to get a casino in Norfolk to revitalize the city in Southeast Virginia. They got through the process. Now you got separate gaming bills there, right? The Pamunkeys are saying, look, we have to jump through all these hoops. We're an Indian tribe, and now we're not on equal ground with just commercial companies that are trying to get a casino license, and we're actually behind the curve, and all we want to do is be on the same footing. And it's like, didn't we already not treat the Indians well once before in our history?
Right. Well, and it's funny. I thought you never asked that one of the biggest issues of session, while we've been, having all these discussions about the other resolutions, we have real legislation right now before us on gaming that is now relevant for the first time ever in Virginia because of the Supreme Court's decision, which has now opened the door for gambling like sports betting in states other than Nevada. So we have all those bills coming in. We have the casino bills, and now the Pamunkey, the tribe obviously needs to be in this game as part of this larger legislative package of bills because they can't be left out. This is obviously very relevant to them, and so they dropped their bill. They're the last one to go in. And so what we ultimately have are a whole lot of competing interests, a fairly divided population among the Commonwealth, people who support casinos, who support sports betting. There's a whole lot that has to be decided. What's it going to do with the revenue? How's it going to be taxed? Who's going to regulate it? Is it going to be the lottery? Is it going to be some other agency? So, and then, of course, obviously you have the Pamunkey tribe and their interests, and the fact that, in their view, this has already been asked and answered with respect to them. So we are now rushing to fill the space with gaming laws that we have yet to adopt, and this is evolving. But I will tell you, it seems to me that adopting some kind of new gaming structure in Virginia is largely inevitable because of the huge economic pressure on Virginia to not send all that revenue outside the state. There are lots of reasons, though, to be concerned, and there are negative impacts, obviously, in communities when casinos are present or come in. So we have to be really careful about how we do this, and I'm not sure that we're going to make every single one of those decisions in a 45-day session with a week and a half already behind us.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not sure you're going to get all that done, but as far as the Pamunkey tribe, there's a bill by Linwood Lewis, your Democratic colleague, just asking for the Pamunkey tribe casino to be treated fairly on an even playing field with a commercial interest. Are you inclined to be in favor of that?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Well, I think that's the right thing to do. I mean, look at what the Pamunkeys have gone through in order to get this. They're very patient people. But to then slight them again based on commercial interest when all they're asking is to be put on the same footing as everybody else, I think that's the fair thing to do. Tim Hugo yesterday introducing a tax bill to save the taxpayers of Virginia virtually millions of dollars, being able to give them choice if they want to itemize, take a standard deduction so it aligns with the Trump tax cut. Why are the Democrats not in favor of this?
I believe because they want to keep the money, and ultimately what has made Trump so popular among so many people has been the federal tax cut and the tax reform. And it is incumbent upon us in the legislature to make absolutely sure that Virginians get the full benefit of that tax benefit, or that tax cut at the federal level. And that means returning to Virginians a whole lot of money, but it also means that we, the legislature, have to affirmatively come in and adopt basically what happens every time, which is conformity, tax conformity. So if we will do the right thing and give more than 600,000 tax filers the opportunity to avoid what is, without our action, a veiled tax increase, there's real harm to Virginians. So why you would oppose putting money back into the pockets of Virginians? Look at the impact those tax cuts have had nationally. Look at what it's done to the economy. Look at what it's done to Virginia. And why wouldn't you want Virginia taxpayers to have the same benefit? And it means it's a tremendous amount of money for Virginia tax. It's 7 million Virginians who will get impacted if we go in and we increase the standard deduction, which is what the House is proposing, $3,000 to $4,000 for an individual, $6,000 to $8,000 for a married couple. So anyway, at the end of the day, it can save a family up to $800, I think $800 a year. Anyway, it's a big deal.
Listen, I don't know how the Democrats are going to position opposition to giving a Virginia tax filer that chooses to take the standard federal deduction and take advantage of the Trump tax cut and then not give the same family or person filer the choice, their choice. Do it either way.
That's right.
On the state side. I don't know how they defend that other than, like you said, Senator Vogel, they just want to keep more of your money. I don't know how they do this. The Ralph Northam plan is basically give $500 checks to people that aren't paying any taxes. And so they're already getting an earned income tax credit and give them another $500. I mean, look, I'm all for in favor of equality and whatever we can do to help people. I don't think that makes any sense when you're taking away the basic choice of a person to decide what to do, and also to increase the state standard deduction, which is now way out of whack with the federal deduction. And then you let people decide what to do. I mean, this is just government dictating that you're going to pay more money. And it's going to be interesting. And I'm almost out of time. I don't want to go on a rant with your time. But it's going to be interesting to see what the Northern Virginia Democrats and their constituents that own all these mansions up there are going to get screwed by their own tax deal for their own people. It's going to be interesting to see how they react. I look forward to that. Jill Vogel, we're out of time. Thank you for being with us, Senator Vogel. Thank you for absolutely doing the right thing in the state Senate on ERA. So now that we can talk about taxes, gaming, guns, things that matter in Virginia, not some ridiculous symbolic vote that Ken Cuccinelli concocted talking points for in order to further destroy what remains of the Republican Party of Virginia after he destroyed it single-handedly. I'm done. Jill Vogel, thanks for being with us.